The steel wraith of Raccoon City. The rain fell in sheets across the skeletal remains of what had once been Raccoon City's financial district, each droplet carrying with it the metallic taste of ruin and the whispered promises of the dead. Claire Redfield pressed herself against the corroded steel beam, her breath forming ghostly plumes in the perpetual twilight that had settled over the quarantine zone like a burial shroud. 3 months since the outbreak had transformed this thriving metropolis into a necropolis of twisted metal and shattered dreams. 3 months since the military cordon had sealed the city's fate, trapping the living and the dead alike in an eternal dance of survival and decay. The Geiger counter on her belt clicked sporadically, a mechanical heartbeat that had become as familiar as her own pulse. The radiation levels here were manageable, barely, but Claire knew that deeper into the city's heart, where the reactor had melted down during the chaos, the very air could strip flesh from bone in minutes. A sound reached her ears, the rhythmic thunk-thunk-thunk of heavy footsteps against wet concrete. Claire's blood turned to ice water in her veins. She knew that sound, had been running from it for 6 days straight. The hunter had found her again. She peered around the beam's edge, rainwater streaming down her face, and saw him emerge from the fog like a figure from mankind's darkest nightmares. Captain Marcus Webb had once been a man, a decorated soldier with a wife and daughter, if the military records she'd hacked were accurate. Now he was something else entirely. 6.5 feet of ceramic plating and carbon fiber muscle, his face a grotesque fusion of scarred flesh and gleaming chrome. One eye remained human, green and disturbingly aware. The other was a crimson optical sensor that swept the ruins with predatory patience. "Claire?" His voice echoed through the rain, amplified by speakers embedded in his throat. The sound carried an odd harmonic resonance, as if multiple people were speaking in perfect horrible unison. "I know you're there, little mouse. I can smell your fear." She pressed harder against the beam, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. The smart thing would be to run. She'd gotten good at running these past few days, had made it an art form. But she was tired, soul-deep tired, and the weight of the datapad in her backpack felt heavier than lead. The information it contained could end this nightmare. Not just for Raccoon City, but for every other city that Umbrella Corporation had marked for testing. The bastards in their ivory towers had turned Webb into their perfect weapon, had loaded him with enough firepower to level a city block and the programming to make him utterly relentless. But they'd made one mistake. They'd left just enough of the man inside to make him suffer. "I have something you want," Claire called out, stepping from behind the beam. Her voice carried clearly through the rain, steady despite the terror clawing at her throat. "Something that might give you back what they took from you." Webb's head swiveled toward her with mechanical precision. The human eye focused on her face while the red sensor swept her form, no doubt cataloging weapons, calculating threat levels, determining the most efficient way to end her life. "Dr. Redfield's sister," he said, and there was something almost like warmth in that inhuman voice. "You look like him, same stubborn jaw, same foolish courage. You knew Chris." The question slipped out before she could stop it. "I killed him." The words hit her like physical blows. 3 weeks ago, he was trying to reach the research facility. I put 6 rounds through his chest and watched him fall into the reactor cooling pool. The radiation would have killed him even if the bullets hadn't. The world went silent except for the rain. Claire felt something vital break inside her chest, a support beam in the architecture of her soul snapping under the weight of grief. Chris, her brother, her protector, her hero, dead. "You're lying," she whispered. "I don't lie. I can't lie anymore. They took that luxury away from me along with everything else." Webb began walking toward her with that same mechanical gait, each footstep sending tremors through the rain-slicked pavement. "But I can offer you something, little mouse. I can make it quick, painless. It's more mercy than they showed me." Claire's hand moved to the pistol at her hip, though she knew it was useless. She'd emptied 2 full magazines into him yesterday, had watched the bullets spark harmlessly off his armor plating, but the weight of the weapon was comforting, familiar. "The datapad," she said, pulling it from her backpack with her free hand. "It contains the shutdown codes for your cybernetic systems. Dr. Grayson's final gift before they executed him for security breaches." Webb stopped, his red sensor focusing on the device. "Impossible. The systems are hardwired. Neural integration is irreversible. That's what they told you. But Grayson was smarter than his corporate masters. He built backdoors into everything, including you." Claire held the pad higher, rain streaming down its cracked screen. One command sequence and all those machine parts shut down. The pain stops. The voices in your head go quiet. You can finally rest. For the first time since the conversation began, Webb looked uncertain. The human eye blinked rapidly while the sensor remained fixed on the datapad. "What do you want?" he asked. "A fair fight. You and me, no cybernetics, no enhancements, just two people with too much blood on their hands. Claire's voice gained strength as she spoke. If I win, I walk away with the data. If you win, you get the shutdown codes and the piece you've been looking for. And if you're lying about the codes, then you kill me anyway. What do you have to lose? Webb was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence Claire could hear the soft whir of internal mechanisms, the electronic whisper of data flowing through inhuman neural pathways. She wondered how much of the original man remained, how much of Marcus Webb still lived inside that chrome and ceramic shell. The enhancement systems can be temporarily disabled, he said finally. 96 hours before automatic reactivation. It will be unpleasant for both of us. Webb's remaining human eyes studied her face with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Then slowly he reached behind his neck and pressed something at the base of his skull. There was a sound like a computer powering down, followed by a wet, tearing noise that made Claire's stomach lurch. The transformation was horrifying to watch. The ceramic plating retracted with mechanical precision, revealing the scarred flesh beneath. Cables and wires withdrew into hidden ports, leaving behind raw wounds that wept blood and synthetic fluid. When it was over, the thing that stood before her was more human than machine, but the scars told a story of violation that no amount of flesh could hide. Webb stumbled, caught himself against a fallen beam, and when he looked up at her, both eyes were human again, green and haunted and filled with more pain than any man should have to bear. God, he whispered, his voice thin and cracked without the electronic amplification. I remember everything. Every face, every name, every person I've killed in their name. Then you know why this has to end, Claire said, drawing her pistol and tossing it aside. No weapons, no tricks, just us. Webb nodded, pulling a combat knife from his belt and letting it clatter to the ground. I was special forces before they got their hooks in me. You, college student, archaeology major, took some self-defense classes. Claire kicked off her boots, feeling the cold concrete through her socks. This is going to be embarrassingly one-sided. Then why are you doing it? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Claire thought of Chris, of the other survivors who had trusted her with their stories, of the children who had died in Umbrella's laboratories while corporate executives counted their profits. Because someone has to. Because if I don't, who will? She raised her fists, settling into the awkward stance she'd learned in her college self-defense course. Because 3 months ago I was nobody special. Just another college kid with student loans and a part-time job. But sometimes nobody special is exactly what the world needs. Webb smiled then, the first genuine human expression she'd seen from him. It transformed his scarred face, revealing glimpses of the man he'd been before Umbrella's surgeons had carved away his humanity. You know what? I think I like you, Claire Redfield. He raised his own fists, settling into a combat stance that spoke of years of military training. I'm going to try very hard not to kill you. How sweet. I'm going to try very hard to kick your ass. They circled each other in the rain, two figures silhouetted against the burning wreckage of civilization. Webb moved with the fluid grace of a trained fighter, even without his cybernetic enhancements. Claire moved like what she was, a young woman who had learned to survive through desperation and sheer bloody-minded determination. Webb struck first, a lightning-fast jab that Claire barely managed to deflect. The impact sent shockwaves up her arm, and she realized that even without his mechanical augmentations the man was still incredibly strong. She countered with a clumsy haymaker that he ducked effortlessly, then gasped as his return strike caught her in the ribs. You're favoring your left side, Webb observed, circling her like a predator. Old wound? Zombie bite 2 days ago. Claire wiped blood from her split lip. Still tender. You should have said something. I could have aimed somewhere else. That would defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? They came together again, and this time Claire was ready. She ducked under his guard and drove her knee toward his solar plexus, but Webb caught her leg and twisted, sending her sprawling across the wet concrete. She rolled, came up in a crouch, and launched herself at his legs in a desperate tackle. They went down together, grappling in the rain and mud, and for a moment Claire thought she might actually have a chance. Then Webb's combat training kicked in, and she found herself pinned beneath him, his hands around her throat. I'm sorry, he said, and she could see that he meant it. I'm so damn sorry for all of it. Claire's vision began to darken around the edges. But instead of struggling against his grip, she reached up and placed her hands on either side of his face, forcing him to look directly into her eyes. Marcus, she whispered, using his real name for the first time. Your wife, what was her name? His grip loosened slightly. Sarah Michelle Webb. And your daughter, Emma, she was 6. Tears began streaming down his scarred cheeks. They told me she was sick, that the company medical plan would cover her treatment if I volunteered for the program. They lied about that too. Emma's alive, Marcus. She's in a refugee camp outside Detroit. I've seen the records. Claire's voice was barely a whisper, but in the sudden silence it carried like a shout. Sarah too. They're waiting for you to come home. Webb's hands fell away from her throat as if they'd been burned. He stared at her with naked hope and desperate disbelief warring in his green eyes. You're lying. You have to be lying. The datapad, Claire gasped, pointing toward where she'd dropped it. Check the files. Civilian relocation records. They're all there. With shaking hands, Webb retrieved the device and activated it. Claire watched his face as he scrolled through the files, watched hope bloom like a flower in the wasteland of his features. They're alive, he breathed. My God, they're actually alive. Claire pulled herself to her feet, every muscle in her body screaming in protest. The shutdown codes are real too. You don't have to be their weapon anymore, Marcus. You can go home. Webb looked up at her, and for a moment he was just a man, scarred and broken, but human in all the ways that mattered. What about you? What about the information you need to stop them? Claire smiled, tasting blood on her lips. I think I just got everything I need. The real weapon isn't you, Marcus. It's the truth. And now I have proof that their perfect soldier chose to be human instead. She held out her hand to help him up. After a moment's hesitation, he took it. Partners? She asked. Partners, he agreed. Together they walked away from the ruins of their battle, two survivors carrying the weight of hope through the radioactive rain. Behind them, the dead city slept on. But somewhere in the distance, Claire thought she could hear the sound of dawn breaking. The war against Umbrella was far from over, but for the first time in months, Claire Redfield believed they might actually have a chance to win it.